What's up, peeps? In this video, I'm repainting a piece that I painted within the last year. This is my bookshelf, a gift from Mr. CC DIY about 20 years ago. And our design tastes are changing, so we've kind of evolved past one shade of blue. I'm painting and faux finishing this tall pine bookshelf to match American walnut. Stick around to see if I can pull it off, or if I run out of paint halfway through. I'm Jen. This is Copper Cactus DIY. Let's clear these shelves and get started. With Mr. CC DIY's help, we got the bookshelf moved out into the garage. And I eventually get this thing up onto a raised surface. Not gonna lie, this middle-aged bod, she can't handle all that leaning and crouching anymore.
What I need to do is each side separately. So where this really needs to be is on its side. Okay, that I think I can do myself. Now let's actually get you into a position where you can see what the heck I'm going to be doing.
Using a generous amount of Gorilla wood glue and an old artist brush, I coated both sides of the cupped area. Then I clamped it up. And since I can only do one side at a time, I repeated those steps at the top of this side. Clamped it. And left it to dry. While the glue dried, I could add caulking to all the open gaps. Some of these did snug up a bit when I nailed and glued from the back, but there were still a few areas that I had to fill. This DAP paintable caulking is dry in about an hour when you're using it as thick as I had to here. I did the same thing around the entire piece, including this really big gap at the top. The shelves in the top of this bookshelf are actually made out of pine stair treads. Super clever, but unfortunately they've really dried out since we moved to the desert. But that's nothing a little caulking and wood fill can't disguise. I finished this and I left it to dry overnight. The next day, I did the same thing with the other side, gluing it up with wood glue. But when I clamped it up, yikes. While that glue dried, I added a first coat of wood fill to the top edge.
Before I even move on with this piece in the front and painting everything, now that the glue is like had a chance to set, I'm gonna actually just put some Howard's Feed and Wax on the back because you heard that crack and it's so bad. And I use large makeup brushes for this because they're nice and soft and they get in all the little crevices real nice.
I finished up the back, then I left everything to sink in, dry, and cure overnight. But before I could lay the piece on its back to paint, I had to buff out the excess wax. Now, I know everyone might be appalled at the fact that I didn't clean before sanding, but like I said, I only finished this piece a few months ago and it's had zero wear since then. And since I was only planning a light scuff sanding on this piece, I knew it wouldn't need the full boat of scrubbing. I used a 180 grit sanding disc to scuff sand by hand. I vacuumed it, and I wiped everything down with a wet microfiber rag. And then it was finally time to get painting. I'm doing a two-tone on this piece, so I added Faux Effects Set Coat in this color. This color will be my base coat everywhere that I'm doing the faux walnut finish. For the inside, I mixed up another Frankenpaint this week. I used up the end of my Rust-Oleum chalked in charcoal, plus my chalkboard paint in black, plus the end of the base paint from my last video. Now, when I say I had literally just enough paint to do 2 coats and 2 tiny touch-ups, it's not even a slight exaggeration. I can't believe I didn't run out of paint on this thing, but I'm just thanking the paint gods for coming to my rescue. After I wrapped up coat 2, I shut everything down for the night.
Alright, first thing I'm going to do today is custom color mix. I'm using this American Walnut Stain and Seal from Faux Effects. I'm just gonna mix up 3 different colors, and if you haven't seen me do this before, you can check out this bench video from the Cozy Winter Challenge. I did the faux walnut on that. All right, let's do this.
What I actually started with the next morning was adding a coat of Varathane satin top coat to everything with Frankenpaint. I've found that this top coat doesn't dull the finish of darker chalk paints, so I'm using it as a barrier coat between the paint and the dead flat varnish that I'm gonna add later. Then I could get to color mixing. I ended up not using this color on the final piece though. It was just a bit too dark for the look that I was going for. In fact, in about 30 seconds, you're gonna see me add this to the piece and then completely wipe it off. So I'm using this walnut wood picture as my inspo. And since I'm not glazing this time, I have to go about this one a little bit differently. Stain and seal can be thinned with water, but this first attempt just wasn't thin enough, so bye-bye. Take 2, too light and a bit too thin. You'd think take 3 would be just right, but nope, I'm still struggling. In fact, I remixed and tested it off camera until... Then, with a much better idea of how to work with the stain in my very dry area, I added undergraining to everything, and I started with this side. I used a 2-inch straight cut purdy and applied the stain in a very sloppy manner from top to bottom of the piece just to get it on. Then I used the same brush to pull it back into some graining lines. Then I used various faux finishing, dragging, and softening tools to finalize the first coat of stain. I repeated this process everywhere that I had put set coat, and once I finished coat 1, I pulled the tape to let everything fully dry overnight.
Really though? Time for a new plan.
I like to make faux as realistic as possible. I mean, I know, duh, that's the point, right? For walnut, I use a check roller to add the deeper grain marks, but the roller is round, so it doesn't make it into the corners. I had to add some details by hand, and I'm just using cheap artist brushes and not going for anything uniform here. The thing I always say with faux, it looks like crap right up until the second it doesn't. The next step though will help this blend in even better. Once the accent graining dried but before it fully cured, I added the next and final coat of stain. I mixed this to mirror my inspo using approximately a 2-to-1 ratio of natural cherry to American walnut stain and seal. I mixed that thoroughly, then I thinned it at about a 2-to-1 ratio of stain to water. Then I mixed that well and applied it with a damp foam brush across the entire surface. This is a small area, but the stain will dry out quicker when it's thinned out, so I tried to move really quickly. With a soft dragging brush, I pulled across the surface steady to create the top grain. Just make sure not to overwork this layer, or it could disturb the bottom stain layer if it isn't fully cured. When a section dried to the touch, I could move the tape and do the next section. Taping off like that really helped to keep my stain going in the direction that I wanted, and it gives a much more realistic final finish. And delicate frog tape is the literal best at this job. It adheres great to the surface, but it won't pull back your decorative finish. And as long as you pull the tape right away, you're good to go. I'm not sponsored or paid to say this or anything. I've just been using frog tape for years as a faux finisher. It's my absolute favorite for decorative finishes. Speaking of finishing, I finished up and left it for the night to dry. I had to do something about the shiny black inside. I just wasn't feeling that sheen and reflectiveness at all. So I decided to try this Folk Art Home Decor wax as a final top coat. But I'd already been burned by top coats once this week, so I made sure to test on the underside of the shelf to start. While that cured up for buffing, I could add top coat to the faux walnut parts. And while I wrap that up, let me just say thank you for all of your support on and off my channel. I love creating art, and your help in any way that lets me continue doing it, it means so much, so thank you. And speaking of, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up before you go. And go ahead and subscribe for more furniture refinishing, faux finishing, and restorations, because that's what I do here, and I'd love to have you join the fun time party. But that's all I've got for now. Beauty shots are coming up, so hang tight. Thanks so much for being here and watching today. Later, peeps!
No, I can't come back and take two on. You can't take two on outtakes. Outtakes just happen or they don't, man. Bye. Bye. Thank you for part 2.